Hey family, this is Dave Jones Woke, coming to you with a new broadcast from the New Reality Network. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to my channel to receive notifications when I post new videos. The title of today's broadcast is Chosen Ones Are Revolutionaries. Now, why did I title this broadcast Chosen Ones Are Revolutionaries? The reason I titled this broadcast Chosen Ones Are Revolutionaries is because there's been a big misconception in the spiritual community for a long time that in order to be chosen, in order to be considered righteous or a follower of God, star seed, whatever title you want to call it, that you automatically have to be placed into this category as being a passive, weak type of individual, a sort of damsel in distress, someone who would never use force under any type of circumstance whatsoever. This is a false definition of what it means to be righteous. And it's a false definition that many would-be light bringers have been deceived by the dark forces, which I call negative forces, into accepting. The reason why it was so important for the dark forces, the negative forces, to convince and trick light bringers, followers of God, righteous beings, into believing that the definition of being righteous and the definition of being a light bringer is to be weak and passive and never to use force under any circumstances. The reason why it was so important for the dark forces, the negative forces, to trick and convince light bringers into believing that is because what you end up doing is giving the dark forces a pass. You end up giving the negative forces a pass. And so that when negative forces, dark forces are attacking God's children, God's chosen ones, light bringers, whatever you want to call them, the confused light bringers and chosen ones actually believe that it is the way of God to allow that, to allow the dark forces, the negative forces, to attack our family of light, to attack our family of chosen ones, to attack God's people, to attack God's children without putting up a fight, because they've been tricked into believing that that's God's way, that that's the righteous way. But what I'm telling you in this broadcast is that's an absolute lie. What I'm telling you is that just the opposite is true. That God gave us wisdom and power to fight on His behalf, to uphold His divine laws here on the physical plane and in whatever realm of existence we find ourselves in. God has given us the duty to uphold His divine laws and principles when they are being violated by the dark forces. And what do I mean by that? God has given us the duty to stand up and fight back against the dark forces when they attack our family of light, when they violate God's natural and divine laws. So let's take example for example here on this planet Earth. With the political situation that we see taking place throughout the planet Earth right now. You have a small group of people, whether you want to call them a secret society or whatever you want to call them, a small group of people which I refer to as the globalists, because you have the 12 richest families on the planet Earth, and they make up 1% of the Earth's population, but they control 90% of the Earth's wealth and resources. And that one small percent of people, the richest 12 families in the world, want to create a one world government in which a global one world government, which is why I call them globalists. They want to create a global one world government in which they will control the entire planet on a global level and control every person who lives on the planet Earth. They want to enslave every person on the planet Earth and force every person on the planet Earth to bow down to their rule and authority, and to allow them to act as sole authority over the entire planet Earth. They want to set up a worldwide slave plantation system here on this planet Earth, which will be their dark kingdom, in which all people will be forced to bow down to and submit to their rule and authority, and to do open slave labor to build and maintain their worldwide planetary dark kingdom. In this world that they have envisioned, that they are trying to bring into existence, as I've said in my previous broadcast, there will be no freedom anywhere on the four corners of the planet Earth. There will be no free speech, no freedom of action, no freedom of movement, and really even no freedom of thought. When you look at movies like 1984 by George Orwell and other movies similar to that, what they were expressing is that this small group of people, these one percenters, the globalists, they were expressing the type of world that these people want to bring into existence. In 1984, they clearly spoke about the fact that this shadow government will come out and reveal itself, and they will impose an iron fist dictatorship upon the entire planet Earth. And when they do that, it will be a totalitarian dictatorship throughout the entire planet. No one will have rights except those who belong to these 12 richest families, which I call the globalists, the small 1% of people. They will all be the only ones who will have rights. All other people will be slaves to these people. Your children will be born into slavery and bondage. You will be born into slavery and bondage. Every generation from that point forward will be born into slavery and bondage. The human species on the planet Earth is almost over halfway to that point now, especially since everything that's been happening since 2020, when they came and forced medical procedures upon the masses of people on the planet Earth, and forced the people on the planet Earth to accept these medical procedures by force. By doing that, what they did is they forced the people through fear to bow down and voluntarily give away their rights. Specifically, the most important right of all that you have, which is the right to privacy and control over your own human body. The fact that the mass of people throughout the planet allowed their physical human body to be violated with a medical procedure against their will, or told that they wouldn't be able to have transportation to go to and fro where they want, to have a source of income, a job to be able to have money, make money to be able to provide for and feed their families. They were threatened. And as a result of the fear that was imposed by the one percenters, the globalists, who created that germ in a laboratory and then turned around and unleashed it on the public throughout the planet, the fear that they imposed upon the masses of people on the planet Earth caused the majority of people on the planet Earth to bow down to and submit and get that medical procedure that was forced upon them, essentially. That's just one example of what they have in store. They will be bringing more of those germs and diseases in the future, and they will force the people to bow down to them and accept their version of what is supposed to so-called cure the germ, which never did. Now all the statistics and facts are coming out showing that these so-called procedures, medical procedures that they forced upon the people, it never cured these laboratory-created diseases that they created. It never cured those diseases, even though they claimed in the beginning that they would. Now, all of these medical agencies, the CDC, FDA, and all these other agencies, they're all admitting now that, no, those medical procedures never did cure the illness, and nor did it prevent anyone from contracting the illness. So they create the disease, the illness in the laboratory intentionally, unleash it upon the masses of people, the public throughout the planet Earth, and then lie and tell the people that they have a procedure that's going to protect them from it, which they knew all along would not only not protect them from the germ, but would actually make them even more sicker than the germ would, there's a lot of statistics coming out now showing that medical procedure that they forced most human beings to bow down to and submit to and get by force, that medical procedure is actually causing more health problems and deaths throughout the planet than the so-called illness, germ, or disease that they were claiming to protect the people from. So it was all one big psyop, not a psyop in the sense that the disease, the germ was not real, because obviously they created that germ in the laboratory. But where the psyop came in was claiming or proclaiming to people that they had a solution, a cure to it, to the germ that would protect them from the germ, when in reality they knew that the medical procedure that they were forcing upon the people not only would not protect the people from the germ, but would make the people even more sicker and kill off more people than the germ ever could or would. This is the dark reality that humanity is living in, and this is just the beginning. Excuse me. So with that being said, going back to the original premise of my discussion here today, what does it truly mean to be a righteous follower of God? What does it truly mean to be a chosen one? What does it truly mean to be a light bringer? What I will offer to you is that by God's definition, by God's will, the true definition of a light bringer, a follower of God, a chosen one, is someone who will stand up and fight against these dark forces and the injustices that they are inflicting upon the human species on the planet Earth. That's what a true light bringer does. They stand up and fight against all forms of injustice, all forms of oppression, all forms of slavery being carried out by individuals against other individuals, being carried out by groups against individuals, being carried out by groups against other groups. Anywhere an injustice is taking place, it is the duty of every follower of God, every righteous person, every light bringer, every chosen one to stand up and fight against that injustice. Martin Luther King said it best when he said that an injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Now, I don't really consider myself to be religious. I consider myself to be more spiritual-minded, spiritual-based. But even if you consider yourself to be religious, particularly of the Christian religion, if you read the Bible, it states in there a point where even Jesus resorted to violence on multiple occasions in order to uphold God's divine laws and to fight for justice and fight against injustice that was being committed against the people. Even in the Bible, it speaks about how Jesus went into the halls of the table turners and overthrew the tables of the merchants who were in there mistreating and tricking and deceiving the poor people in there of giving up their money so that they can steal their money and leave them even more impoverished than they already were. And these were the merchants at that time who had money at that time, who were stealing the meager savings that those poor people were saving up. They were stealing that money from them, tricking them out of it. And Jesus wasn't having no part of it. And he went in there and he overturned the tables of the merchants, you see, and forced them to return the stolen goods and money that they had stolen from the poor people. So even Jesus himself was a revolutionary. This is what a true light bringer, chosen one truly is. Okay? I don't like to use the word light bringer because I believe that the dark side of the force, Satan, the dark forces, have hijacked the word light and light bringers and is using it for a low vibrational, negative, demonic, satanic purpose. So all of those who refer to themselves as light bringers, I would prefer that you didn't refer to yourself as a light bringer. I prefer to myself as a positive spirited being because I represent the positive side of the force. Just as you have negative spirited beings who represent the negative side of the force. They represent Satan. Those of us who follow God, we are positive spirited beings and we represent the positive side of the force, which means that we stand for the principles of freedom and justice and equality for all people. While Satan and his followers, they stand for the enslavement of all people, the oppression of all people, to bring injustice to the masses of the people. Okay, so there's a war between good and evil, a war between the positive side of the force and a war between the positive side of the force and the negative side of the force. Okay, a war between God and his followers, and on the other side there's Satan and his followers. Now there's many people who say this is an age-old war that's been taking place between good and evil, the positive side of the force versus the negative side of the force, God versus the devil. This war continues. And the latest point that we find ourselves in this war is what I just spoke about. What happened in 2020 was just the kickoff, a trial run for what they had planned. They would plan to unleash many more of these poisonous germs upon the masses, upon the public, and use those germs that they release to create more fear, as tools to create more fear in order to force the people to bow down, submit to their authority and give up more of their rights, their constitutional rights and every other right. Particularly here in this territory called North America, they definitely plan to come for the people's guns. That's one constitutional right that they consider the most dangerous of all the rights that the American people have, because that gives the American people the right to defend themselves against tyrants, corrupt governments, and officials and politicians who would seek to enslave the masses of the people and take away the people's rights. I spoke about this in my previous videos, about how the corrupt governments always use a strategy called the totalitarian tiptoe. What the totalitarian tiptoe is that the governments who tend to be the most corrupt and have plans to totally enslave the people and take away all of the people's rights, they never come right out and tell the people that they plan to take away their rights. They always do it in a slow, quiet tiptoe, which means that they take one right away at a time. And you allow them to take their right of freedom of speech away, then they'll take away the right of assembly. You allow them to take away the right of assembly, then they'll take away the right to own firearms. If you look at places like Australia, New Zealand, and other places like that, who have allowed these totalitarian dictators to come into their government and enforce laws that have suspended and taken away their constitutional rights and take away their weapons, those people are getting brutalized and mistreated and beat up all upside the head every day, every chance you get by the police over there in those countries. They are totally being ran over. They had the iron fist, they had that boot of oppression on their necks by the oppressors, by the iron fist dictators who are the one percenters. Okay? That's who the one percenters are. That's who the globalists are. They are the iron fist dictators who want to keep their boots on the necks of the masses of the people who make up the human species on the planet Earth. This is the dark future that they have planned for humanity. Like I said, 2020 was just a kickoff. They have an agenda called Agenda 2030. I want you all to research that. Research the World Economic Forum, in which the richest 12 families and groups and corporations throughout the entire planet meet up every year at the World Economic Forum. And they plan out their agenda that they want to have carried out and implemented fully by the year 2030, which is why they call it the Agenda 2030. And they are openly stating the fact that, one, they believe that there's too many people on the planet Earth and they want to reduce the world's population. That's a demonic way of thinking right there, because, one, they're trying to play God. God wouldn't have placed all these people on the planet Earth if he thought that there were not enough resources on the planet Earth for the people. And throughout all the world's scriptures, whether you look at the Quran, the Bible, the Torah, or even the Buddhist holy book, it states that God clearly states through his prophets that he placed a more than ample, abundant amount of resources on the planet Earth for all of his creations to be fully provided for and have all of the basic necessities met fully and abundantly. So when you hear these globalists, these one percenters, tell these lies and say, oh, well, we have 7, almost 8 billion people on the planet and we just don't have enough resources on the planet, that's a lie from Satan. And those one percenters, the globalists, are Satan worshipers. They're devil worshipers. They follow the will and the laws of Satan, which basically is all about enslavement of the masses, oppression of the masses, mass murder and genocide, death, destruction. That's what the devil worships. That's what the devil desires. They feed off the negative energy that comes from oppression and slavery and constant nonstop wars and death and destruction. This is the reason why they sacrifice babies, people, human beings, to their devil god, also known as the Baphomet god. Okay? So this is the war that humanity finds itself in. They want to do away with all the world's religions and create a one world religion, which would be the religion of devil worshiping. Okay, the religion of which was known as Satanism, devil worshiping. And if you do your research, you'll start to find that the shadow government, the 1%, is now starting to openly expose their hand by allowing even forcing a policy of forcing school districts in every city and every state across the country to now allow Satanists to have after-school programs in elementary and middle school and high schools now. They have Satanist groups who actually can come up there and establish their groups, and your kids have the option now of going to these after-school study groups. And they actually now have Satanism on the agenda, on the curriculum as part of these after-school study groups. Okay, so whereas before, maybe they can learn a little bit about being an engineer or architect or a lawyer, now they got these after-school study groups where they study to be Satanist. That's their ultimate agenda. Okay? So when you pay attention to what's taking place, they want to do away with everything that God represents. They want to do away with spirituality. Even if you don't consider yourself to be religious like I don't, I consider myself to be spiritual. But they don't even want you to be able to have spiritual beliefs that allow you to follow God's law, to be a godly person and to do what's right and to fight for justice in the world. They don't want that. They only want one world religion, and that's the religion of Satanism, devil worshiping. That's what all of the politicians do. That's what all of these secret societies who make up this 1% of the 12 richest families in the world. This is what they do. They meet up every year in these secret underground places or out in the open forest, which is, if you research the Bohemian Grove out in California, these open forest areas like the Bohemian Grove, where they go out there every year. And it's been proven that politicians and heads and CEOs of corporations go out there every year to the Bohemian Grove, and they sacrifice kids. They worship the devil. They sacrifice babies to their devil god Baphomet. That's Satanism right there. That's what they want the one world religion to become. They want to do away with all religions and all other forms of spirituality that allow you to have at least some connection to God and try your best at least to be a follower of God and uphold God's principles on the planet Earth and fight for justice on the planet Earth and create a world of equality and righteousness. They want to do away with all that. They only want to establish one world religion, and that's the religion of Satanism, the worship of their devil god Baphomet. Okay? So this broadcast was titled "Chosen Ones Are Revolutionaries for a Reason." It's time for all of God's people, regardless of what spiritual beliefs you have, what religious persuasion you may come from. If you believe in God, a supreme source, or if you just believe in righteousness, if you want to create and live in a world of righteousness, where there's freedom and justice for all human beings, even if you don't consider yourself to be spiritual at all. If you believe in establishing a human experience on the planet Earth, where all human beings are treated fairly, with equality, freedom, and justice for all human beings, then you are what they consider an enemy. What the one percenters, the devil worshippers, the globalists consider an enemy, because you're going against their plan and their agenda. I say chosen ones are revolutionaries as an example, but I'm really referring to anyone, whether you call yourself a light bringer, a follower of God, a righteous person, anyone who stands up for and upholds the principles of fairness, justice, and equality and freedom for all people. That's what it truly means to be a chosen one, a light bringer, a follower of God, a positive spirited being, which is what I refer to myself as, a follower of the positive side of the force, which is many people refer to as God or the source. Okay? Whatever title you give yourself, if you're about the principles of freedom and justice and equality for all human beings, then you have to be about the business of fighting for freedom and justice and equality for all human beings. You can't say that you're a righteous person, a chosen one, a light bringer, a positive spirited being, or anything of that nature, a follower of God, and then turn around and say, well, God calls upon us to just sit back on our hands and allow dark forces to oppress the masses of the people on the earth, because we believe that that's the way to be righteous, is to never use force. That's a lie from Satan. God's will is that he gives us the right, and not only the right, he gives us a duty to use force only when it's necessary to fight against injustice. And I'm not saying that we're supposed to just go out and use force unjustly, because that's what the Satanists and the devil worshippers do. But God's children, chosen ones, light bringers, whatever you want to call yourself, positive spirited beings, we are ordered and ordained by God to use force against those dark forces who are unjustly mistreating the masses of the people on the planet Earth, forcing medical procedures like they did in 2020 and continue to do to this day upon the masses of the people on the planet Earth, violating people's right to their private bodies, privacy in their own personal space in their private bodies, violating people's constitutional rights, taking away people's constitutional rights, taking away people's rights to assemble, taking away people's rights of free choice, taking away people's rights to own weapons to defend themselves and their families against unjust, corrupt governments. We have a duty to fight against these dark forces. The fact that the masses of the people, not only in America, throughout the planet, live in poverty, while this small 1% of people own 90% of the world's wealth and resources, that's a dark reality. That's a satanic reality. That is the definition of injustice. And then God calls upon all of us now to stand up at this important time in history and to fight against all forms of injustice, whether it be financially, economically, where the masses of people are being kept in poverty and made more impoverished every day, while these small 1% of people grow more wealthy off the backs of the masses of people. Or whether you're just talking about politically and the rights of the people to speak out and assemble being taken away. Okay? Whatever rights you're speaking of that you believe you have is now under attack. It's being threatened by these dark forces. And God is calling us now to stand up and fight against these injustices and fight for your rights. Fight for the rights of your children. Fight for the rights of your family. Fight for the rights of your community. Fight for the rights of your city, your state, your country against these dark forces who control most of the politicians in every city and state and country throughout the planet. At this point, they control 95% of the world's politicians. They control 95% of the world's governments. The only reason why they haven't just rolled through the streets with tanks is because they haven't been able to take over every control of every politician and every government. Even in America, they got 95% of the politicians, but they don't have all of the politicians. And as a result of that, they haven't been able to come in and take away, destroy the Second Amendment and take away the people's guns, or else they would be rolling up in the streets with tanks right now, suspending the Constitution, telling people that they're living under martial law and a totalitarian dictatorship. That's pretty much what they're doing in Australia, New Zealand, and these other places who have allowed them to take their guns away. They come in with the tanks every day. Anytime the people get a little bit out of line, they come in with the tanks and military and beat them upside the head, maybe kill a few of them, and get them back in line. That's happening in Europe, New Zealand, Australia, and in China, obviously, dictatorships like China. Even in Russia, they get down like that sometime, but don't take it to mean that these places, including Russia, are any different than America, because we see the rights of the American people being taken away more and more every day. The same way police officers can kill people, specifically black people, but now you see they're starting to show their hand, and now the police officers are openly killing people of all races now, because they just use black people as a tool to condition the people to accept allowing police officers to openly murder and beat people in the streets, in order to condition the masses of other people outside of black people, Hispanics, Asians, whites, to know that now they can be treated that way too, and to accept that as the norm. Okay, that's the totalitarian dictatorship, where they take away one right at a time. Once you see them taking a few rights away from black people, then they'll be taking rights away from Hispanics and Asians, and then they'll come for the whites. And this is all taking place now. Okay, the ultimate goal is to create a one world government in which one small group of people, the small 1%, 12 richest families in the world, who I refer to as the globalists, want to create a global one world government. And they will control the entire planet through that small council, which they will call the one world government, global government. And they will control every city and state and country and territory and every person throughout the planet from that one central headquarters that they will control, from that one world government which they plan to control. No one will have rights or freedom or justice anywhere on the planet Earth except them, those who are part of that small 1%, the small group of globalists. Okay, so as chosen ones, as light bringers, as positive spirited beings, as star seeds, whatever you want to call yourself, as followers of God, or even if you don't believe in God or spirituality, and you just believe in the principles of fairness and justice and freedom for all human beings, now is the time for us to stand up and fight against these dark tyrants, these globalists, these dictators who are basically devil worshippers. It's time for us to stand up and fight against these Satanists who are trying to force their religion of Satanism upon the planet Earth and make that the prevailing, ruling religion, one world religion throughout the entire planet, that they will force all people to bow down to and submit to and follow. If you are against those dark forces and the plans that they have to totally enslave humanity, the time is now to put aside this false notion that to be a chosen one or to be righteous or to be a follower of God, you must be a passive, weak person. That is not the definition of a righteous person. The definition of a righteous person is someone who sees injustice and does not hesitate to stand up and fight against that injustice, no matter who that injustice is being carried out by, and no matter who the injustice is being carried out against. I always go back to Martin Luther King's statement. where there's a threat to justice anywhere, where there's an injustice anywhere, this is a threat to justice everywhere. Okay? And this is the thinking of every true light bringer, every true chosen one, every true positive spirited being. Okay? So, I'm going to get ready to bring this broadcast to a close today. Just know that now it is a time for all those beings who consider themselves to be beings of justice, to be light bringers, chosen ones, positive spirited beings, star seeds, followers of God, people of justice. It is time for all of our family of positive energy, the family of positive energy, the positive energy force, those who represent the positive energy force, the positive side of the force. It's time for all of us to now unite throughout the planet Earth and rise up against the dark forces who are seeking to enslave the human species on the planet Earth and plunge the planet Earth into a very dark state in which it will become a prison planet where 90 to 95% of the people will be enslaved and only a small percent of people will be allowed to have freedom. And those will really be the 1%ers. Those who they don't enslave, they might allow a few people to reap some of their benefits in order to continue to carry out their worldwide system, but the 1%ers are the only ones who will truly have freedom. So you can say the 99% of the mass of the people on the planet will be enslaved. It's time for us to stand up and fight and unite and fight against these dark forces and fight for the freedom of humanity. The true definition of being a chosen one, a light bringer, a positive spirited being, is one who stands up and fights against injustice, wherever it may occur on the planet Earth. So with that being said, my family, I'm going to bring this broadcast to a close. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to my channel to receive notifications when I post new videos. If you would like to support my channel, my Cash App and Venmo is in the description tab in the About section of my channel. Thank you for all of your support, family. I look forward to speaking to you in my next broadcast. This is Dave Jones Woke. Peace, family.